Hello and welcome to the latest instalment of what is hopefully your favourite video game podcast. I'm Becky, your host for this month, and I'm joined by Bash.
Hello.
Chip.
Hello.
And Andy.
What up?
Did you say it? What? Did you say the full thing?
Nope, because it's a DLC. I've removed the fucker and I'm going to sell it later on.
Oh, I get you.
Ah.
I'm not sure how I feel about the sentence, I'm going to sell the fucker on.
You fell
Did
into
you
my
see
trap.
we'd had our first merch request on Twitter as well for this? For a What Up Fuckers t-shirt.
Oh, hell yeah. See,
Yeah.
Who was that?
my
Can we ban
ego
them?
does not need this.
I don't know who, I think it was Liam the Mason actually on Twitter. I may be wrong.
Liam, you're banned from the podcast.
He's my favourite listener.
So, this month we're doing something a bit different. We're taking a look at a now established gaming feature, the DLC expansion. I was going to leave a pause for the music. I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, good
for
luck
that, Chip.
working that one out, Chip.
Yeah,
Oh, fuck. Yeah, what am I going to do for that?
I don't know.
I'm just keeping this in, that would do.
That's why you're tech boy.
I'm an editor.
But first, how is everyone and what are we playing? Bash, I'll throw to you first.
I am playing Dream Daddy, the Dad Rector edition.
Yeah.
Dad Rector's cut. It is a daddy dating simulator.
See, I knew you were playing that, but I still wasn't ready for you to say it.
No, I honestly didn't think you'd go with that for the podcast, but obviously you did.
I haven't really been playing much else.
How is
I
your
can't
dad
say.
dating game?
I can't keep saying Nier every time. That's the only other game I play. Yeah, it's good. I have dated all of the daddies one time. I have to go on a second date with all of the daddies. And then by third date, you pick the daddy. And
You said daddy way too
Yes,
much.
Daddy, so much.
Very uncomfortable. We might need another content warning at the start of this episode.
your daughter's called Amanda, so I gave her the surname Hug and Kiss, obviously.
A classic.
Nice.
Classic. I have purple hair and a moustache.
Well, enough about you, Bash.
You got there first, so I was going to make the same joke.
But yeah, it's a visual novel and it's very fun and just low-key nonsense. It's kind of quirky and has a really good sense of humour that I enjoy a lot. And obviously
Excellent.
it's hella queer. And last month it had 69% off on Steam, and honestly I just have a lot of respect for that.
Nice. Andy, what have you been playing?
I've been playing an indie game called Not Tonight. It's basically a bouncer simulator set in a
Although it was going to be a sequel to Daddy Dating,
Oh no.
when it all goes terribly wrong.
The first date, not tonight.
Well, funnily enough, yeah, okay, I'll get to that. I'll get to the dating stuff later on, but the game's basically a bouncer simulator set in a post-Brexit dystopia, and you play like an immigrant who's kind of being threatened with deportation, and you get like forced to like work in front of nightclubs and high society shindigs and stuff, and you basically just got to check people's IDs and like let them in, or like check for any kind of errors in their ID and stuff, and just like turn them away. It's kind of like Papers, Please, but a bit more light-hearted, even though it is set in like a post-Brexit Britain.
Light-hearted.
Yeah, it's like, well, Papers, Please, it's pretty grim. It's very Soviet. But it's got quite a good sense of humour, really, considering it's about Brexit.
Haha, we're all fucked.
Yeah, that's basically the mood of the whole thing. But there's also a DLC for it called One Love, where you play one of the supporting characters called King's Head Dave, who was the pub owner of a pub called the King's Head that got blown up by terrorists, and he kept it open even though it was like a bombed out husk, and you had to keep working for him. And that game's set in France, and you start working for your own pubs, like to earn some extra money, so you can use a dating app and like try and like meet the perfect person for you. It's really funny, and it's got a really good gameplay loop. I love that style, like scrutinizing information, like looking for, like, keeps adding new mechanics each for like time you play it, and it's a really fun game. Yeah, so Not Tonight. It's on Steam. I think it's on sale at the moment. Probably won't be by the time you hear this, but so tough shit. Just buy it anyway.
You have such a way with our listeners, Andy.
They'll listen.
Chip, what about you?
Oh, I'm just playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey because that game never fucking ends, so I'm just still playing that.
Is that 3 months now? Like 3 months of this podcast?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's probably going to be many more. It's going to be. I still really like it. I'm still really enjoying it. It's still really fun. It's really repetitive and grindy, but I still really like it. No, do you know what? On the back of Andy's recommendation, I started playing Backbone as well, which is on Game Pass on PC and Xbox.
Day one on Game Pass.
Day one. But yeah, so I've been playing that. Not very much of it. Like, I like it, but I don't love it. But I just wanted to say that so I could plug Andy's review on this pod, and you should go and listen to that because it's very, very good.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
We like a plug. There'll be a few in this episode, guys. So if you haven't listened to earlier episodes, now's your chance. Hey. So I've been playing Stardew Valley pretty much exclusively for the past 10 days, and I'm about to hit, I think it's 80 hours of gameplay. So
Yeah,
wow.
that's Stardew Valley for you. Yeah.
yeah, it's taken over my life. I want to retire from my boring office job and become a farmer and marry the town himbo. So yeah, it's great.
You should be allowed to do all of those things.
I
I'm
should be.
fully
I think I'd
supportive.
make a terrible farmer, but I run a good business. Like, that's, like, my crops aren't great, but I sell the shit out of mayonnaise. So I figured, like, that's where my skill set lies.
That's where you need to hire a farmhand, like I did with Chip.
No,
Oh.
that's not what happened, is it?
Oh.
That's not what happened. Well, it's a 50-50 Our farm is a 50-50 venture.
Why do I have the biggest farmhouse then?
Because
Yeah, you live in a shed, don't you?
No, I don't live in a shed. My house is very nice. It's got a plant and a plastic flamingo that you keep stealing.
You can put those in sheds.
Yeah.
It's not a shed. It's not a shed. And just because you spend all of our money and I do all the work doesn't make you the boss. So, I mean, that
I
is
mean,
kind
I
of a
feel
definition
like-
of
I was
boss,
like,
but-
yeah,
feel
yeah,
like
that's
it is.
capitalism right there.
Yeah, well, we haven't played in a while and all our chicken children might be dead. So,
Why would you bring that up right now?
anyway, on with the podcast.
Yeah, on that note.
Segway.
So, as is tradition, Andy has been taking a look at the history of DLC, so I'm going to hand over to him for a bit.
DLC, as we know it, it had two very distinct origins that would go on to intersect and become the thing we know as DLC today. Its first form came as part of GameLine, which was an experimental games delivery service by Control Video Corporation using Atari 2600 system, and that was done in 1983. Historians out there will also note that 1983 was the year of the video game market crash that nearly destroyed the medium we all know and love. So you can already see where this is going. Described in an issue of Electronic Games as the greatest thing to happen to video games since the joystick, and created by Bill von Meister, originally conceived as a music distribution platform called the Home Music Store, Meister was forced to pivot to the video game market after music retailers used their considerable muscle to prevent any major record companies joining the service. GameLine made use of a modem, which at the time was like the most cutting edge of modems, and it was labelled Master Module, and it was written in this big like He-Man looking font, which was really interesting. And the modem itself was like a big silver slab, much like, yeah, very 80s. It would receive games through the phone line from a central computer located in Vienna, Virginia. And fun fact, Russian spy Robert Hansen was arrested in Virginia in 2001. That's the only interesting thing I can find out about Vienna, Virginia.
Excellent. I love a bit of random trivia.
And spy trivia too, the best kind. So GameLine would charge a rental fee per download, on top of a $49.95 yearly subscription cost, which would be the equivalent of $135 today for a yearly subscription. The rental cost would be about $1 per game, and that would be limited to 8 players of that game, and then the game would become inaccessible afterwards. So this was not especially good value for money, as the same games that were available on GameLine could be picked up in budget sections of most stores for $2.99 at that point. And GameLine did not acquire any licenses for the big publishers, even when things were really precarious in the industry, like Atari, Activision, Mattel and Parker Brothers just didn't want anything to do with them. So like in modern terms, that would be like thinking about Game Pass if they didn't have access to like Bethesda and things like that. But if you wanted to play Porky's the video game exactly 8 times, GameLine was the place for you.
Don't want to think about what that would entail.
We won't do an episode on Porky's the video game
Thank you. I appreciate that.
yet.
No.
So so like a mixture of lackluster roster, poor value for money, and the entire game industry collapsing meant GameLine and its revolutionary approach to game distribution died the same year it launched. So the next major factor into the DLC, as we know it today, was the advent of the expansion pack. This was the concept of DLC in its untapped form. It was physical media exclusively, additional content for existing games. Limited data distribution meant it could really be only done physically. The first examples of this would have been the Dragon Slayer games. One of the earliest examples was Xanadu Scenario 2 in 1984, which was an expansion pack for Dragon Slayer 2. The fifth Dragon Slayer game, called Sorcerian, I think I'm saying that right, in 1987, that would implement episodic gaming, which you're releasing like small expansions like over a period of time. So like even episodic gaming isn't a new concept. Like big franchises like Sonic the Hedgehog and Doom would like make use of expansions in the 90s, and the concept really took off in the early 2000s with like the RPG genre and games like The Sims. Over time, as the internet access grew and became more affordable, data delivery system of GameLine, it became more viable for big companies, and the combination of online distribution and expansion packs would merge as DLC. While the idea of existed in a raw form on PCs during the 90s for like games like Doom, it wouldn't become really like a mainstream thing until the early 2000s. The Sega Dreamcast was the first console that really made use of DLC, but it was the advent of the Xbox and Xbox Live in 2002 that made like online gaming and DLC a global service for console gamers. And it's been going strong like ever since, like paving the way for episodic gaming becoming more accepted in mainstream, and Xbox Game Pass as examples. Sadly, Bill Van Meester died May 1995, and he never got to see his vision fully realised. But he was something of a pioneer in the gaming industry in history, so he deserves to be credited as such. So this episode is in memory of him. Thank you, Bill.
Oh, amazing. That's actually a really detailed history that I wasn't expecting.
I wasn't either when I was researching. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, I
There's
just
a whole
thought
thing
it
going on here.
came to be. That's really cool. Well, thank you very much. See, we're all learning things on this podcast. To kick off our main discussion, I'm going to ask you all a nice, easy question. What is your favourite DLC expansion of all time? And Chip, I'll come to you first.
Okay, cool. I don't play a lot of DLC, so this is going to be interesting.
Chip!
Good topic.
I think, to be honest, it's going to be Witcher 3, Heart of Stone, and Blood of Wine, both of them. So I never played The Witcher until just over a year ago, actually. With lockdown and COVID and everything like that, I turned to video games as a coping mechanism, as I'm sure we all did. And I sank 250 hours into The Witcher 3, much like you with Stardew, Becky, just played it non-stop all day. Anytime I could get to it, I did. And that's just the main game. And then, because I bought the special edition, magic, super awesome, uber fantastic edition for like £7 because it was on sale, I got Hearthstone and Blood of Wine as well. And those DLCs, as I'm sure everyone will know, are games in themselves. Like, the runtime is huge.
Yeah, I have things to say about those.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to hearing those things. And I think what I liked about them is they kind of did quite different things to a lot of the original game as well. You know, you got your usual monster hunting and stories and all that sort of stuff, but it's set in sort of new areas and new worlds and stuff. And you get things like you do the mission where everything looks like a painting, and that just like completely blew my mind. And you get to fight a big vampire, and it kind of, I don't know if I want to spoil kind of the ending of it, but like there's depending on your decisions and actions and stuff like that, you get kind of a nice resolution with Geralt if you did kind of the right stuff. So I think just for sheer size and value of money and ambition, I would say the Hearthstone and Blood of Wine for Witcher 3 is my favourite.
Did you get the good ending?
I did get the good ending. I got the very good ending.
No children murdered in the name of this DLC.
Not this time. I don't know if I did anything bad in The Witcher 3. I probably did something bad in The Witcher 3. But
Did you try and get a freeway with the two women?
Did I? Maybe.
You'd
I can't
remember that, I'm
No,
sure.
I don't think so. Yeah, I know. I tried to get with Triss, but because I turned her down when she was drunk, the game didn't let me do that. So I was like, "All right, game, Jesus Christ." So yeah, I was with Yennefer at the end, which is fine. She's fine.
Team
Settled.
Marigold over
That's
here.
fine.
I did kiss her when she was drunk because apparently I have no
Becky.
My God, Becky.
Well, the game invited you to, and I like Triss more than Yen, so
I mean, I did
That's
as well.
not going to
to be
hold up
fair.
in a court of law.
no,
I don't
it's
think
not.
there's a lot
but-
in that game that's going to hold up in a court of law.
Yeah, I mean,
I've not
of all
even
the
played it, and I think that.
yeah, I was gonna say of all the dubious like gender politics at play in that game, I really feel like that's one of the minor ones. But that's another
'Cause you did
episode. All right, Andy, what about you?
Ooh, I'd probably go with Red Dead Redemption's Undead Nightmare. I think that took the game that I already knew and loved and transformed it into like this zombie horror apocalypse. Like it just turned the entire game on its head. It was a perfect reimagining of that game. Even your random encounters, that quite a common factor in the Rockstar games of that era, they got tainted by that horror vibe. So I remember like distinctly a scene where I was coming across this man who was like weeping over the body of his friend who'd he'd obviously just shot because he thought he'd gone crazy, and the friend gets up and tries to bite him, so the guy shoots the fella in the head, and then almost immediately he just puts the gun to his head and shoots his own head off. I was like, holy shit. It's like it really creates this great dark, like creepy vibe, and I really like the fact that you could only kill the zombies by shooting them in the head. It's something a lot of zombie games just seem to forget to do, and I really like that attention to detail. And like I think that Undead Nightmare worked so well, like mixing the like supernatural and like the mythology with the Old West. It's something that Red Dead Redemption 2 would like incorporate into its main game, like the bleak tone, the supernatural qualities, things like just kind of woven into the game. It's a perfect DLC. That.
Yeah, that got mentioned a couple of times by people commenting on Twitter when we asked for their questions and comments on DLCs. That I think it was like 2 or 3 times that came up. Very popular one.
I like that in Red Dead 2 as well. You find that town that is kind of a hint to the start of that as well. I thought that was quite a cool little Easter egg.
Yeah.
Would you guys like to see it in Red Dead 2? Like, would you like to see like them do Undead Nightmare 2?
Oh, I'll get to that later.
Ooh.
A little tease.
Yeah. I won't answer
Little bit
until
of
Andy
tease.
discusses that then. It doesn't sound weird otherwise. Sasha, what about you?
I really struggled with this question because the whole time since we said we were doing DLC, I've been trying to really think about what DLCs have I played, and I really come up short. So, mine is going to be probably very lighthearted and a little bit ridiculous, but it was the Lego Star Wars Force Awakens Season Pass extra levels, because I really loved the film when it came out. Although these days I feel like the less said about Star Wars, the better. But at least publicly, I don't like to discuss it anymore because I'm so tired of it. But
It's a secret shame now.
yeah, but the Lego Star Wars games, I freaking love the Lego games. They just do so much for me in terms of what I enjoy in gaming and collecting and having a dumb sense of humour and all the other good stuff. But what they did with this, some of the DLC, it had levels that were between The Force Awakens and Return of the Jedi. So it actually added to the lore as well, like of the whole
Oh, that's
Star
cool.
Wars. They have one that's Poe's quest for survival. So it's Poe's journey back to the Resistance base after escaping the First Order, which you don't really see in the films. You've got a First Order siege of Maz Kanata's castle. That's really cool. And then escaping Starkiller base as well. They were just little bits that they added in that they didn't need to. And it's a weirdly big game because the first Lego games like cover the first 6 films, and then this was a game that almost had the same amount of content, and yet it's just for Force Awakens. I can't wait for the Skywalker saga to come out, which I think is later this year, the Lego game. I love them so much, and anything extra that I can get. And then, of course, with the season pass, you also got things like the character packs, So you get all your favourite characters that weren't in The Force Awakens. Like I say, it's a bit sad, really, when you guys are like, Red Dead and The Witcher,
No,
and really
at all.
serious games that have these really big expansions, and I'm just like,
Lego's
my little
legit.
Lego level that only took me about an hour.
Don't worry. Like, I've got quite a silly one as well. So really, don't worry.
Lego's legit. Let's not downplay Lego. It's
And,
like that was a game changer when they started doing that.
And we all know you're picketing the Lego offices regularly for the Batman games, so it's not a
I just
surprise.
want them
Yeah.
on the new. I just want them on the new generation consoles. Is that too much to ask?
Exactly.
Yeah, Lego Batman was the first good Batman game in decades.
Yeah,
So,
it was.
Yeah.
What I like about the way you said that is it's like we were doing show and tell at school, and me, Becky, and Andy brought in our new toys, and you stood up and you had this little sock, and
brought
this
yours.
smelly sock, and you were just like, "Oh, I know it's only a small sock. I wanted to show you."
But I love it and it's mine.
No man, Lego games are awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. Did they not do DLC for Nier?
They did, but I've
Ooh.
not finished it yet. And also it doesn't really fit into the overarching story. It's just like arena type combat stuff.
Oh, right.
That you can do.
Okay. Yeah.
So
That
it's
kind,
fun.
yeah.
I've been having fun doing it, but it's not. It's meaningless in the grand scheme of Nier.
Cool. As I mentioned, mine is a bit silly. I can't remember what it's called now. It's the Skyrim one, Hearthfire, where you can build your own house
Yes.
in Skyrim.
That's not silly. That's not silly at all.
Because anyone who knows me knows I spend hours on games just sorting out outfits and houses and how things look. I love that kind of stuff. I spend a lot of time on The Sims, and it was like The Sims but with dragons. And I just really had fun, and I really liked the idea that you could adopt kids as well, and they'd bring their pets with them, and it was just really cute. You're murdering people and beheading them left, right and centre, but you can come home and sit by your own fire in your Daedric armour. So yeah, I really enjoyed that one, and I will always build a house when I play Skyrim again, inevitably.
Have you seen the Gus Johnson video, Skyrim House?
Yes.
That's what I was thinking of when you were talking. Just I want to live in a Skyrim house.
And there was that thread about there was a guy who adopted the dog or something.
Yeah, and he
That's
tried to protect
brilliant.
the dog, and he created a family to help keep the dog company. And
Yeah. It's entirely inconsequential in the actual scope of the game, but I really enjoyed building all the houses.
I think that's a good example of DLC because it changes the game in an interesting way.
Very true.
It's not just tacking on stuff that could have already been there. It was something new.
Yeah, and I think it's sort of I think part of the problem with Skyrim is the Dragonborn character is quite blank for obvious reasons, because it's a universal thing, so you can create your own little story when you've got houses and things, rather than just sort of being this chosen one figure, which I think is quite nice as an expansion. So I've got some listener honourable mentions here. So friend of the podcast, Foxy, gave us an entire list.
Of course he did.
Of course he did. He's so prepared.
God damn it, Foxy.
So we've got Diablo 2, Lord of Destruction, Bioshock Infinite, Burial at Sea, which I wanted to play for this episode, but I never got round to it. I'm really looking forward to playing that one.
Yeah, same. I never got to
I haven't
finish it.
played it either, and I love that game.
Well, clearly we all have homework to do.
For this episode?
Yeah. Yay! That works. One Up Podcast, always prepared. And then Alpha Centauri, Alien Crossfire, XCOM 2, War of the Chosen, Half-Life
XCOM
Opposing
2.
Force, Red Alert 2, Yuri's Revenge, and Commander Conquer Generals 0 Hour. So, yeah, Foxy's well on it with the expansion packs.
Yeah.
Nerd.
I like to think of it as, in The Simpsons, when the carnival folks see Homer as a big pigeon, that's gaming companies with Foxy.
This guy will buy it. John O'Card, also friend of the podcast, said Dead Space 2 had a fun expansion called Severed, playing as a different character but set during the main events of the game. So you're seeing things you've already done as Isaac Clarke, and then you put destruction, mostly. And there was a Northern Irish character in it, and Jono is Northern Irish, so representation matters, everybody. So we've got a few different ones. We have had a question specifically about the Spider-Man DLC from my friend Karis, who she is asking whether it's worth getting because she really enjoyed the main game. So I wanted to grab people's thoughts on that.
I have played it. Yeah, it's very good. It's I was really excited to see the Black Cat. A big fan of the Black Cat,
Yes.
and it is good. It's quite tough in places compared to the main game, but it is very good, but not as good as the main game. I would say about that. I would pick it up on sale maybe if you can. But the thing is, it's like I just love playing that game. Like I would just happily swing around the city for hours doing now. And it's more of that. It's more of Spidey action. It's just not, the story's just not as strong as the main narrative, which is super strong. So it's a solid 7 out of 10.
Yeah, the finale's quite weak. Like the early stuff with Black Cat's really strong, but it kind of peters out as it's going along. It's not essential, but if you do like with Chip and everybody else, if you love playing that game, it's another reason to play more of it. So it's I'd probably get it on a sale if it's available.
Was that pun intended?
What pun?
You said peters out.
Oh.
Oh no, that was accidental.
Hey.
I'm not taking
I'm
credit.
gonna guess
for that.
no.
If it was intended, I probably would have said no pun intended.
I'm wasted on you lot.
I missed it entirely.
I wonder what they were on about.
Yeah, so I'm most of the way through the Black Cat section because I love Felicia. So I was very excited to play that. I was a bit disappointed to see there's more of the grindy aspect in there. I think I'd have liked it just to have been story based rather than have to do more crimes around the city and whatever Screwball's doing.
Oh fuck Screwball! I hate Screwball.
The Screwball
Yeah.
stuff
Her
fucking sucks.
missions are the fucking worst.
As soon as she popped
fuck
up, I
that
was
DLC.
like-
do not buy it.
Whoa, extreme.
Sorry, I hate her missions in that.
Yeah, I
they're
haven't done.
terrible.
I did the first one when she first shows up and was just like, no, I'm not doing this. So I think I'm just going to play them for the story rather than all the grindy stuff. Because as soon as it was like 5 crimes in this district, I was like, no, not again. But yeah, I'm really enjoying like returning to the game and like finding, like swinging around the city. Like you said, it's just fun, and I like the tension with MJ finding out about Felicia. That's quite fun. So yeah, maybe in a sale, I think we're all saying.
Yeah, in a sale, don't do the Screwball mission.
A sort of ringing recommendation, I don't know. Other honourable mentions from you guys, like ones you've enjoyed playing or ones that you want to play?
I do have one. Little Nightmares. The Secrets of the Moor.
Oh yes.
The additional 3 levels that they added to the original game. So I bloody loved Little Nightmares. I played it on stream, so I think quite a few of you watched me play it.
Yeah.
And
mostly.
scare myself frequently with it. And then I played the DLC, and not always as strong, but it's still a really good platform puzzler. But oh my god, did I like my brain break a little bit in the last like 5-10 minutes when you learn who the character you're playing is in that
Yes.
DLC. Oh, broke.
I think
it broke me.
when I was watching you on stream, I clocked what was about to happen just before you did. I was like, no.
It was a lot. It was
I
unexpected.
think I must have missed this.
Well, I guess if we just say it, spoilers for anyone who might want to play it. So,
Skip ahead.
in the first Little Nightmares, when she eats the gnome thing,
Oh no.
and then in the DLC at the end, the character you're playing in the DLC gets turned into a gnome somehow.
Oh no.
And then
Can you
she
see where
eats
it's
him.
going?
She
Oh,
eats
no.
him, Chip. And I'm on stream just having like a full-on meltdown. Like
Can confirm.
in like the most like I thought it was brilliant. I like horrible and grim, but like a really great twist. And as soon as you realise it's coming, there's nothing you can do. You're just watching horrified, like, oh no. Like, I got him to the end. Why?
Yeah, it's a really effective trolling of the player. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
big
super
time.
impressed that it pulled it off.
Because it really is just in those last, like, couple of minutes when you realise what's about to happen. It's great.
One of the ones I wanted to mention was the Baba Yaga DLC in, see if I remember, Rise of the Tomb Raider, the second one. I really enjoyed that one.
That's great.
Because, yeah, I love the folklore element, and also, like, the actual environment that you have to traverse to get to her is really cool. And, yeah, I really liked that one. It's a fun little diversion.
Feels very un-Tomb Raider as well. At least for those ones, they're all quite grounded in reality. Where this one's opens it up a bit more. And I didn't even know it was DLC. Like, I must have just bought like a super special fancy edition.
Yeah.
And it was just there, and I was like, "Oh, what's this?" And it wasn't until afterwards I was like, "Oh, that was a DLC. That was really cool. I really liked that."
Yeah, same. I did the exact same thing, and like I played through it, and I think I was trying to get the collectibles, so I looked at what they were, and then it was like the DLC, and I was like, "Oh, that's amazing!" Like it fits so seamlessly.
Surprise DLC.
Yeah. So yeah, I really enjoyed that one. Any others?
One of my first ones. It's another Rockstar game. It's GTA 4's The Lost and the Damned and The Ballad of Gay Tony. These they offered new perspectives on the world of Liberty City, which was a game I just GTA 4. I just sunk so much time into. I was obsessed with it. So these two different DLCs, they gave you a look at the world of the biker gangs and also the cutthroat world of the nightclub scene in Liberty City, and they added a lot of extra depth to the world of GTA 4. Added new gaming mechanics, and it was already an impressively detailed world and just standard brilliant world building from Rockstar. But the best part of those DLCs was each DLC had a mission that intersected with a mission that you play in the main game. It was the diamond sale that takes place in a museum. So it was, I think it's called Museum Piece in GTA 4. The mission was called Collector's Item in Lost and the Damned, and Not So Fast in The Ballad of Gay Tony. So it makes up a trilogy of missions. It's the same story from 3 different perspectives. And I thought that was just a really cool idea of building on the chaos that you experienced in the first game. It's just, I wish more game DLC did things like that, just played around with your expectations. It's a really, I love both of those games.
I wish Rockstar would do more story DLC.
Yeah,
for
that's
GTA.
Yeah, I wish. I
don't think we're going to get that ever again.
Never, no. GTA Online's the future now.
We make our own stories in GTA Online.
Yeah.
Famously.
Oh, do we?
Yeah, we could do a fucking podcast episode just on that shit.
No one would want to listen to that.
Just chaos, start to finish, and explosions.
And some weird family that we've built in our minds.
Yeah. Let's move on. Chip, please.
No elaboration.
Well, one more I want to talk about is The Last of Us Left Behind.
Oh, yes.
This is one I thought that we might both have this.
No, I didn't name this one. I thought
okay.
you might mention it, so I left it.
But that's just, I love The Last of Us. I'm looking forward to, at some point in the future, doing an episode on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And I love Left Behind because it just adds so much character to Ellie. She's really well developed anyway, but getting to see her, before she meets Joel, it's also super sad when you see how she changes from that DLC to where she ends up at the end of The Last of Us 2.
Oof.
But it was great playing as her before we got a chance to do it properly in The Last of Us 2. And that's really, really great. It takes all the good stuff from The Last of Us and just gets you more time with Ellie, which is always a good thing because she's great.
It adds some new mechanics as well, which The Last of Us 2 made use of, the use of sound as a distraction method. Because obviously Ellie can't throw down like Joel can. So they found new ways to make you, added more strategy to the game, which was something The Last of Us Part 2 does really well. That opens up the combat completely. So that was a really cool detail as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's much harder when you go from wanting to protect Ellie to, as Joel, to actually playing as her and feeling more responsibility to keep her safe.
Yeah.
No dickhead run of The Last of Us then for you, Chip.
No, it'll break me. There's no way.
You did so well
crying
with Dead. That break you at all.
Oh, did you not see me at the end of the first season, Becky?
Yes. You made me cry.
Yeah, it broke me.
So you've both kind of touched on it. I wanted to talk about, what do we look for in DLC expansions? What kind of things do we want to see? What should they be doing well? Because Andy, I think you mentioned it just then about deepening your understanding of an environment or offering you different perspectives. That's what I look for, really. I want to see the world slightly differently and, you know, see what the characters are going to get up to in a different setting rather than retreads.
Yeah, that kind of ties into my other honourable mention, Hitman. The first Hitman reboot, it did a DLC campaign called Patient Zero, which took all of the maps from the first game and like used them in a completely new story, like provided new challenges, like insights into those like brilliant designed worlds. It gave you more value from those like worlds that you got to explore and like use as like they're just like these big puzzles you had to solve. And Hitman also introduced what's it called, elusive targets, whereas like they would be like online like one-shot missions. You only had one attempt to get it right, and if you failed, you could never play it again. And I'll always love that because it introduced the mission where you had to hunt down Gary Busey in Sapienza.
I was wondering if you were going to mention this.
Yeah, it was so fun. I spent like about an hour just walking behind him, listening to him talk, just like ranting about like thinking he saw predators on the rooftop and wanting to call Danny Glover Mr. Musk, and like then he met Gary Cole, I think, and he just started howling like a wolf, and I was like, this is the best game ever. And then I did actually successfully kill him. I threw a rubber duck at him and I exploded it, and then I ran away quickly.
Yeah, you don't want an enraged Gary Busey chasing after you.
It was one of my slick Hitman runs. Yeah, I didn't want to anger Gary Busey. I thought better to make sure he's dead.
Yeah, I remember you messaging me about that when you were playing it and just how enthusiastic you were.
It was so good.
I think you kept quoting him as well, like just sending me messages of like random shit Gary Busey was saying in the game.
It just feels like he walked into the recording booth, just sat down, like threw the script to the side and just started talking. And he's like, you know what, fuck it.
I think the last one I wanted to honourably mention would be Dishonored, Knife of Dunwall.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we're talking about what we look for in DLCs, and that for me it's stories, and like you guys said, is anything that kind of changes the world, changes the perspective, you know, adds a new element to the game. And, you know, I'd never played this. I absolutely loved Dishonored. And
so good.
I, for some reason, never got around to the DLC. I think just mainly because I'm not a big DLC buyer. So when I decided I was going to replay it a couple of months ago, a lot of that was like, because I want to play the DLC. Oh, it sounds really cool. So getting to play as a new character, and you have different abilities. So it's the same gameplay, but your tactics have to change. And I found it a lot harder because I was like, no, I just like to be able to stealth behind people and choke them out. But it's a lot more difficult this time because you're playing as someone else. And I haven't actually finished it yet. I started playing Assassin's Creed because I wanted a break from Dishonored. So I need to go back and finish that. But it so far has been very, very good.
So you'll go back to it in about 3 years when you've finished Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Yeah, probably.
Tune in, guys. Many episodes down the line. Yeah, Sasha, if you're faced with the option of grabbing hold of a DLC, what do you look for? What entices you?
I think you've all kind of said it. It's that whole, you know, it should be new, but also delineate itself from the main game. So whether that's, you know, new story or, you know, getting further embedded in an environment. I like it when it makes sense within the story, but also I guess it definitely shouldn't be essential to the main game, because then that's them making main game stuff behind a paywall, isn't it? But like when I think of it's like Tiny Tina's Dungeons and Dragons, or Tiny Tina's Wonderland, which is of course now getting its actual own game. I didn't even know that was DLC. So my experience with DLC a lot of the time is where I've just bought complete editions of games and not even really known, and honestly not even necessarily really cared. I just like, you know, if it's a game I've liked, I just like playing it. And then someone will go like with the Tiny Tina's Dungeons and Dragons a bit, I've been like, oh, that was DLC. I had no idea. Like, I just played it. So yeah, I think it's just things as long as it's adding to the story, but it, I guess, like I say, it shouldn't be essential. Not that I'm stingy or anything like that, but I think there is a perception of extras and things just being kind of like money grabs. So the only other time I can think of DLC, if it's not important to a story, is a game where certainly 2 versions ago, or maybe even 1 version ago, I bought many expansions, is The Sims.
Oh god, you tell me about it.
The Sims 2, I spent so much of my pocket money at the time buying expansions to, and Sims 3, I think, was out when I got my first proper job, so then I spent most of my wage, most of my wage on buying, like, the extra expansions, and it was because, like, I want pets, and I want
to date people.
Yes, and I want to be a DJ, apparently, or like whatever random fucking shit they add to that game. But at the same time, I got The Sims 4 in one of the recent Steam sales, and I was looking, and all of those expansions are really expensive. So I'm kind of picking and choosing what I want, what appeals. So there's so much out there now, and my backlog is so huge that if I finished a game and then I'm looking at DLC, I have to have really enjoyed the game, and I have to really want to expand on that, and also have to have heard other people saying that it's worth it.
Yeah.
Like, it's worth the time and the money, because otherwise I'm like, I'll just move on to something else.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I dread to think how much money I've sunk into The Sims over the years. Like, I just would not want to see that all in one place, especially when it's for things like the Haunted House Pack. Because I have a brand and I stick to it.
Sorry, Becky, I'm just envisioning you as the pigeon now.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, just rubbing their hands.
It's fair. It's fair. I am the Sims pigeon.
Sims pigeon.
Yeah, so we'll talk about cost in a bit, because that was one of the things that came up quite often with comments from Twitter followers and listeners. But just on the flip side, what are DLC expansions that you've played, either as part of complete editions or you bought on a whim, that you haven't enjoyed so much, and why?
The big one that comes to mind for me is Arkham Knight. I mean, there's a lot to love about Arkham Knight. There's quite a lot to not love. But the Seasons of Infamy DLC was absolute bullshit. Previous Arkham DLC, that's been like condensed scenarios with like new characters, get like new environments, like plays around with the gameplay style, but with new trappings. They were always really fun, but getting to play with new characters in this play style. But the Seasons of Infamy pass, it was literally just the rogue-based side missions that in the main game, but like these were chopped out and then sold back to you. Like, it was stuff that should have been in the game to begin with. It wasn't a story in its own right. They were all completely independent to each other. You just download it, and it just slots back into the game where it belonged in the first place. It's just stuff like the Riddler and Man-Bat missions in the main game. It's just stuff like that, but they were all a lot worse. It was the shittier versions of all those things that were in the main game. But they sold them back to you, and they thought they could get away with that. Ooh. It's just really frustrating when games do that. Like, just taking something that should have been yours for the price you paid, because you already pay way too much for a video game to begin with, and then they just take stuff out, and then they try and like sneak it back to you and ask for more money.
Yeah, that's shitty. That's really shitty. I think I'd probably like write an angry letter at that point. Like, that would drag me over the line of, a concerned email. Like, this is travesty. So Chip, I think I'm going to upset you with one of my choices.
Excellent.
So I liked Blood and Wine when it came to The Witcher 3, because that was fun.
That's great.
Could not stand Hearts of Stone. I was so bored. And was just like, I'd sunk so many hours into The Witcher 3 by that point. I was like, no, I am getting through this DLC. I am doing it. And I really struggled with Hearts of Stone. It was so long and so dreary and really similar to like what came before, apart from like a couple of the sequences. Yeah, I found it such a trudge. Apart from the wedding scene, I think was the only bit I actually enjoyed. Sorry.
No, I
that's
think
so
that's fair. Cause
yeah, you're right.
Well, I know how you are about The Witcher. So.
Yeah, but like Blood and Wine was something new, whereas Hearts of Stone was more of the first game.
Yeah.
It took place in the same map. It could have been played like parallel to the main story if you got it early enough. It just added more to that game rather than giving you something new, which is what Blood and Wine did, and that's why that felt so refreshing, to like jump into this whole new environment, this new culture, taking in this new story, like completely separated from all of the stuff with the Wild Hunt. It it felt fresh and it kind of rejuvenated my interest in The Witcher 3 at that point.
Yeah, and Geralt got a house that you could decorate, which, as we've discussed, really appeals to my interests.
And a
I
winery,
really
no less.
enjoyed doing that. That was
Yeah,
great.
it was so. Every time I went back after something had been done up, I was like, "Oh, it looks so nice. It's so fancy."
I got upset because there wasn't room for more armor.
Yeah.
Like, because I had so much armor at that point, and I was like, I want to display them
Yeah,
all.
every time I got like a fancy sword that I didn't like, I wasn't going to use because it was too low a level or anything, I'd be like, I'm going to display this on my weapon rack.
You're going in my bathroom.
Welcome to the guest room.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed that one. I didn't like that. So I missed out on the trip to, is it like a Wonderland style thing? Because of the decisions I made. I think that should have been built into the main story anyway, that you went off into that fantasy bit, diversion. But yeah, otherwise Blood and Wine I liked. Hearts of Stone was not a fan. And I think I'd have been a bit peeved had I bought that rather than buying it as part of the Game of the Year edition. We've had a listener question on this as well. Karis asks, have you ever bought a DLC and then suddenly wondered why?
It would be Arkham Knight probably again. So I'm not enjoying myself here. Why did I get more of this?
Yeah, I can see that.
I bought the complete edition of The Witcher 3, so I guess I bought that DLC, and since then I'm wondering why I bought the game at all, because all anyone tells me is that I don't think it's your kind of game, Sasha.
No.
No. It's very open world. Like,
Yeah.
huge.
Oh, it's the
Very,
only.
Yeah.
very
Oh,
big.
Enormous. It's like the openest of worlds.
Oh, I kind of want to pick it for an episode now, just so we have to make Sasha play it.
Yeah, we have to book it like 2 years in advance or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would.
I
Yeah.
would not replay it for that. No. I don't know how many hours I put into it, but I was so like witched out by the end of it, I think.
I've never bought them, but the amount of times that you see aesthetic things to buy, like The Sims, again, you kind of, it seems par for the course at this point with them. They'll release DLC for anything. But so you mentioned Nier earlier, and I'm pretty sure there's versions of where you can like get different outfits for them. Like, why? Why would I pay extra money for that? I don't know. Maybe again, this is just me being the stingy northerner. I don't know. But I'm like, isn't there like outfits that you can buy for The Last of Us? I don't know. I could be making this up, but that's the kind of idea. I can't think of any specific off the top of my head, but like stuff that's really inconsequential, and it'll be like $4.99. Like Fall Guys, you get all of the outfits in the game that you can win kudos points and crowns for and stuff, but then they have those every time where they release a set of outfits that you can only buy as DLC. And on the one hand, I want to be like, yeah, let's support a small developer, although I imagine they're a lot bigger now. On the other hand, like, £6, man, for outfits that are
Yeah, it's a couple of coffees there.
that are giving
One coffee.
that are doing nothing. And especially in a game like that, I mean, how often do you stick with the same outfit?
Yeah, like I would never be able to stick with one long enough to make it worth the payment.
It's just inconsequential aesthetic stuff. I think it just always makes me roll my eyes a bit because it just feels like really shameless cash grab. More so than some of the other stuff.
Which leads us really nicely into our next section on cost. Well done, Sasha.
Ayy.
Most, I would say, of the questions that we had from listeners when we harangued them into sending us something was around the idea of cost. So we had Liam the Mason say he very rarely buys them out of principle because a number of the games he plays will release a complete edition 12 months after release, and paying an extra £10 to £20 on top of a £50 game is probably a bit much. We had, should pointless DLC be capped on price, from Creeper223, to which I would probably respond, how do we class pointless? Like, I'm not sure about that one. Has the amount of paid DLC ever put you off buying a full price game? And there was another one as well, like, do we think that DLC should be capped? So I'll kick us off with that one. Do we think there should be a price cap on DLC?
I mean, yeah, because otherwise they could charge you like a full game price for like something that lasts like 10 hours or something. I mean, some AAA games do that, but yeah, if they're like a game you've already paid for, there should be like I'm not sure entirely what I would cap it at. it'd probably be like relevant to how much game you're getting, I guess. Because like the Witcher expansions were like dirt cheap compared to what you got for them.
Yeah.
So like
I will
that
concede
was
they were
like
good
that's a
value
very
for money.
rare bargain you got in DLC. That was like CD Projekt Red just like throwing you a bone. I always felt like something had gone wrong in the checkout point where I was buying the expansion. It's like, this can't be right. They're gonna find out something. I'm gonna be in trouble.
Yeah, you do get a lot of game for your money with those ones.
Yeah, I don't know. Probably no more than like half the price of whatever the game cost originally on release. Can't see it got anything over that being acceptable.
Yeah, and I think like for that price, I'd expect like a lot extra as well.
Yeah.
You know, like Sasha was saying, I wouldn't want to like spend that much money on aesthetic stuff, which I guess is probably where the pointless DLC idea creeps in. You know, the idea it's not actually anything to do with gameplay, it is just aesthetics.
Yeah, it's just like armor and like weapon skins and stuff, like mostly pointless.
Mm.
Yeah, I would never touch a cosmetic DLC. I don't care. If it was worth having, it would have been with the main game.
Yeah. And that kind of links into the whole play to win idea of online games as well, you know, that certain amazing armour or weaponry is only available to those who could afford to buy it, which sucks.
Yeah, like loot boxes.
Yes.
That completely sank Star Wars Battlefront 2 because it was so heavily reliant on loot boxes, and anybody who refused to pay more than they'd already paid originally was getting screwed, and it just absolutely sank a really good game's reputation because EA got greedy. They did a really good job of like fixing their reputation afterwards with a lot of free updates, like extra content that was never initially promised, but it should have never got to that stage. It should have never been a thing like where they just locking people out of progression through like that kind of predatory practice. I really can't stand loot boxes. It fucked up Middle-earth Shadow of War as well, which is a game I loved for like 90% of the time, and then in the end game section it's like heavily reliant on grinding to like level up your armies, and like it takes forever. You can make a lot of progress and then suddenly you lose in one area and you have to start over again.
Ugh.
So they kind of encourage you to buy loot boxes to improve your armies, and it completely I just gave up on the game at that point. Then I was told they removed the loot boxes but they didn't fix the grind aspect, so it just became a endless chore.
God.
And it ruined a really great game. It was really disappointing.
That's why I haven't played that game. I really like the first one, but I heard so many bad things about the sequel in that regard that I was just like, I cannot be asked with this, and I'm not giving them more money, so I'm just not going to play
Yeah,
it.
same. That was pretty much
Yeah,
my
that's fair.
exact thought process as well, because I loved the first one so much. But yeah, I don't want to pay extra to complete a game I've already paid for. That's like, why is that a viable business model?
Because people will pay it.
I know, but why? Don't pay it. I'll pick it, that one.
Yeah, if we all just teamed up, we could have finished this quickly. I mean, people did team up on EA with Star Wars Battlefront. They like basically shamed them into like dropping the loot boxes, which was nice.
Yeah,
Bit of a gamers actually doing something useful for once.
I don't think.
Was it in Belgium where they've banned loot boxes, or is that just in FIFA
somewhere?
games?
Like
Oh, yeah, yeah.
One country
Pretty
did.
sure it's
ban it. I think it's
Belgium.
Belgium.
Which I think is really great because FIFA makes so much money, or EA, I guess, makes so much money from Ultimate Team.
Yeah.
With the packs, and just, I mean, you know, it is a form of gambling because I know there's regulations in place now where they're supposed to show you the odds and stuff like that, but it's still gambling because gambling has odds, and I would never do that. Like, okay, yeah, I mean, I know there's a lot of aesthetic packs for games and stuff like that, and yeah, it's fine. Like, it's not for me, but if you want to pay that, it's your money, so go for it. I mean, that's how Fortnite makes so much money. But loot boxes are just the fucking worst, and just a plague on the industry.
Yes, agreed.
Also,
I-
like on the flip side of like cost and stuff, there's also like free DLC. That's like a pretty big thing, especially with like live service games.
Are we gearing up to you ranting about the Avengers?
I need to get this off my chest so we won't do an episode on it.
I mean, we still might, but sure, go for it.
I will quit. So yeah, bad DLC, Avengers, fucking Avengers. So that I hated that game on release. Like, It wore me down and broke my spirit because I wanted to like it, but it was bad. And anyway, like all the support they've had since, it's just been adding new characters, which adding new stuff is fine if it's actually changing the face of the game. But Avengers just adds like asset flips. Everything's just like a reskin of another character, and that was already like rampant in the main game. You had like so many characters who were just exactly the same, just changed the aesthetic. And then they end up fucking releasing 2 Hawkeyes in a row and thinking we won't fucking notice what they're doing. Fucking but the problem with live service, it demands like so much of your time on a gameplay loop that's not very good in the first place, and all you're getting out of it is like paint jobs. It's just plain lazy. There's like GTA Online would be a good example of live service support. They're like constantly expanding how you play that game. They're adding new mechanics, new experiences, the heists, the races, arena wars, just like new side jobs to make money, new businesses, adding nightclub management of all things. And that game is massive now compared to what it was on release. And it's all like, it's just building on the core gameplay loops and adding new ones, and it's just really interesting. Every time you come back, it's something new. Whereas Marvel's Avengers is just offering you that same blandness every single time. They're just changing the packaging. It's basically just Malibu Stacy in a new hat.
But she has a new hat.
And people, well, not a lot of people fall for it because the player base is basically fucked, but they're going to have to give that thing away for free eventually to actually get anything out of that.
Well, they already have been doing, haven't they? Wasn't it one of the PlayStation exclusives?
Yeah, PS Now. It was a PS Now thing.
Yeah, PS Now, that was it.
And it's always on sale for half price.
Yeah, I noticed that.
You can't give that thing away.
Should I? But no, I don't know. I think the only time I'd play it is if we did decide to torture you with an episode.
Please don't. Please don't. I wrote so many words in my review. I'm done. That 4 out of 10 is all you need. It's done. It's over.
I like that we're already starting to pick games that are just to troll everyone else.
Yeah, I'm good. I've got it off my system now.
You're good. You're okay.
Yeah.
Sure?
Well, I'm never going to be okay. I played Marvel's Avengers, but for now, I'm fine.
Oh, the horror. Okay, so one last question from the audience. What is the best distance between a base game and DLC? And that's from Construct Glue on Twitter.
When we talk about distance, are we talking about time? Are we talking about concept?
I guess time.
That's how far you are from your PS4.
I prefer it to be 2 meters, thank you. I don't know, what do you want distance to mean?
It's an interesting idea, isn't it? Because I think DLC strategy has changed in the last 5 years or so. I think it's about to change again. But I feel like the only time where I've been really consciously aware of DLC has been season passes that tend to last like 6 months or even up to a year. So I had it for Fallout 4. Weird that never came up earlier, and even until just now, where I was like, oh yeah, I did have the season pass for Fallout 4. I had it for the Lego Star Wars game. I know they released one for Borderlands 3, which is a game I've still not got yet, but I love for the previous Borderlands. So that's like a commitment, isn't it, from developers to say over the next 6 months or whatever, we will keep releasing stuff. And if you've paid your 20 quid or whatever for the season pass, you'll get that stuff. You won't need to buy it separately. But obviously the risk there is that you don't know what you're getting. But I guess in terms of time, I would think anything within a year seems alright, except for like live service type games and obviously like big, massive multiplayer online whatevers that have been going for about a century, you know? I think you kind of forget about them otherwise. If like they're releasing a game, a DLC that's 18 months after the original game, it's a bit like, oh, moved on from that now. I mean, not me. I play games years after they come out, but you know what I mean. At the point when they're relevant.
Yeah, I think like a year would be ideal. Like for like live service games, you'd need new content like every 6 months, maybe something like that, 3 to 6 months. But for like just a normal game, I'd want like with the season pass thing, I'd either want like regular small updates like over the course of like 6 months, or if it's going to be a big expansion, like maybe a year away from release. Like I'm still waiting for all those Cyberpunk 2077 expansions that were promised, but they need to fix the game before
Yeah,
that
I was going
happens.
to say, I think they've got bigger fish to fry just at the moment.
Yeah, but like The Witcher 3 did it was about a year or so after the release of the original game, but they've released a lot of free stuff before then, like extra quests, new hairstyles, like they updated all the fight animations, all that stuff was for free, just to like tide you over until the big expansions were released. So I think like I'd be willing to wait a year for like a really substantial update, but not much further, because at that point I would be thinking about moving on to something else.
But then I think if you think talking concept,
Oh God.
that's a whole other kind of fish.
I don't even know where you're going with this, so yeah.
But like, it has to be close enough to the game, because there's a reason you play. If you've got the DLC, there's a reason you got it. You liked the base game. It's got to be close enough, but then it also can't be. Well, it can't be a reskin. It can't be a retread. It can't. It can't be the same thing you've already played, but just like a little bit different, because I imagine that's really disappointing as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to play a game I'd really enjoyed to suddenly discover the DLC is something entirely different.
Or exactly the same. Like, you can't go either way too far, because like you get bored of the exact same thing. But if it's so radically different, you're like, this isn't what I wanted. It needs to be just new enough.
It's
like,
the Goldilocks of game content.
Yes.
Just right.
Blood and Wine is basically the perfect porridge.
My example for that would be the Arkham City one, where you play as Robin. I really enjoyed that because it was so compact.
They did some good ones.
Yeah.
Arkham City did some really good DLCs.
Yeah, so it's the Harley Quinn one, which, yeah, I really enjoyed. Not only because you got to spend a bit more time with Harley, but also, playing as Robin and having, like, new things to interact with the environment. It wasn't too radically different. It also wasn't too long, which seems to be a big thing for me. Like, I like my DLC quite compact.
I'd like to flip that round a second, because thinking about that question got me thinking about a game that I have played that came out that I think should have been DLC, not a new game.
Ooh.
Oh. It was the new Spooters game,
Ooh.
which I know none of you guys have played.
Oh, Miles Morales, yeah.
The Miles Morales game, yeah. And I won't obviously go into any details.
Yeah, don't brag about playing a PlayStation 5.
Because I would kill you.
You'd have to catch me first.
I know where you live.
That is a worrying statement to make. In that tone, on a podcast where there's
Carrying a gun.
witnesses.
I'll cut that out.
I took my headphones off, I didn't hear anything. Leave me alone, Chip.
But yeah, like, that's a game that came out that was, a couple of years after the original, the OG, and it came out obviously as a full price game, in spite of the fact that the story itself is probably, I would say, less than half as long as Spider-Man. And yeah, it probably fits into this thing of what is the best distance between a base game and DLC, not just from time, but also from concept and stuff. It's obviously got enough new, and you get into play as a new character, and that's all really cool. But there is that thing afterwards where I'm really glad that I didn't pay full price for it, is what I'm going to say. I'm really glad that I got the opportunity to play it, that somebody else owned it. Because I actually totally get all of the comments that came out around the time where people were like, wait, that's it? Why was this 50, 60 quid? I guess it's kind of flipping that on its head. Again, around that distance between base game and DLC, like, I think they released it as a new game just because of the amount of time that had happened between the two. And because obviously, yeah, it was Miles Morales, and absolutely he does deserve his own game and he deserves his own stories. But I still think it either should have been price pointed better, or it could have just been a really good interim DLC, because there are examples of those.
Yeah.
Where the DLC is so big. Well, you've mentioned them on this podcast, where the DLC is so big that it's practically a game in and of itself anyway.
Mm.
But then people don't feel ripped off by it, when it's like, oh, but it is still really similar to the original in a lot of aspects. It's just new story and stuff, you know?
That's interesting, that. Like, thinking of games that should have just been a DLC expansion. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but there's been a few. where they've just released something that wasn't substantial enough to justify being its own thing, and that's a problem. Like, DLC should like justify existing in the first place, but games should also justify not being DLC.
Well, if we're going back to the original question, I don't care. Wait, can I put that nicer? I don't mind. I'll cut that out.
Care.
I don't mind about the time between DLCs and the main game. Don't know why this is my new voice. So a lot of the time, if I'm going to pick up a DLC, it'll be for a game that I really like and I want more of that story. See Spider-Man, which is a game that I pre-ordered and then bought the DLC and played them, as soon as they came out. Because I think they came out in about 3 parts across the next few months, so I got those right away. But yeah, like I said at the start, like for the most part, if I pick up a game on sale, I'll maybe tend to pick up, the big expansion, super duper mega awesome fantastic edition, so I can get those DLCs included, and then I don't feel like so much that I've paid for DLC that I don't like. It's there if I want to play it, or it or not. So yeah, I don't really mind. I'm not really too fussed about times and how that works in terms of DLC and the base game.
Yeah, I think it would probably depend on the game for me as to how quickly I wanted something extra afterwards and how long I was prepared to wait for something. I'm trying to think of an example, really. But again, I tend to buy the super duper fantastic awesome, all the other words that Chip used, versions of games, so the DLC tends to already be there. I'm trying to think. I'm sure there's definitely an example. But I think for some of my favourite games, so like Horizon Zero Dawn, if they decided to release a DLC now for the first game, on top of the Frozen Wilds, to bridge the gap until Forbidden West, I would absolutely buy that, because I love that game. For next month's podcast, incidentally, everyone. So I think, for something like that, it wouldn't matter how long between the release of the original game and the DLC. I think I'd still probably get it anyway. But probably for a base game that I wouldn't necessarily enjoy as much, I wouldn't be as bothered.
It would come down to how much you trust the developer as well.
Oh, massively.
Like with The Witcher 3, like with CD Projekt Red at the time, I was like, yeah, just take as long as you need. Like, I trust you're not gonna let me down. It's like things that age poorly. I love Cyberpunk 2077, but obviously a whole lot of fucking stuff happened.
The irony.
So yeah, there's like if Naughty Dog said they were going to do a Last of Us Part 2 expansion, I'd be happy to wait like a couple of years because I just trust them. I know it'd be worth it.
I'd be willing to wait because I don't want to go through any of that ever again.
Hang on, aren't you picking The Last of Us for the episodes? Aren't they your choices?
Yeah, and I'm not looking forward to experiencing all the trauma again.
Okay.
Just flagellating himself.
I just remember playing that on my 24-hour stream. It was my first game, and it made me cry within 10 minutes.
Yep.
I was like, well, this is a cracking start to my 24 hours of gaming. I'm crying in the first 10 minutes.
Yay. It is a great opening.
Not looking forward to seeing that remade with Pedro Pascal.
Yes.
That's going to break me.
Oh, Pedro, we love you.
Poor Alpha Daddy.
Oh.
But can you date him?
Maybe
Try.
that's what we need. We need a daddy dating Pedro Pascal DLC.
Yeah, just all of his characters have dateable options.
Hey, the daddy dating game, it obviously had DLC because I'm playing the Director's Cut. So it has new stuff.
Right.
I don't know what it is.
Oh, it was in Director. Okay.
Yeah, it kind of, Sasha's thing broke up for me there and it said Dad Rector. And I was
No,
like,
that's
ooh,
literally what
what?
it's called. It's called...
Yeah, but there was like
That's if the
Dad
date goes
Rector.
well.
there was like a break between
I think
Dad
Sasha's
and then
missing
Rector.
good wordplay is here.
Erections.
There we go.
Boner.
Chip, can you just edit that out for the trailer?
Yes.
Excellent. Alright, so for one last question, I thought it would be quite fun to ask this of you. If you could have any DLC of any game in any era, what would it be and why? And Sasha, I'll come to you first.
I don't know that I have anything. And I know that that's like a proper cop-out. But...
It is.
Only slightly.
And no, but it absolutely is. But I think, again, it plays into how I play games, and as a gamer, I don't play games when they come out. I wait. There's been, in the last 10 years, I think 2, maybe 3 games that I bought when they came out. I feel like DLC just isn't really like a huge thing for me. If you're gonna ask me like games that I've loved, but the games that I've loved, truly loved, as much as I would always be like, I would love, I could spend so much time with Max and Chloe in Life is Strange, and yet at the exact same time, I wouldn't want any more than what I got, because I think it's perfect as it is. And thinking of other games where I feel that strongly, like Batman Arkham Asylum, I think it's perfect as it is. I love that game as it is. And I guess that's probably where I'm getting at. All the games that like I love, wherever I think I could have extra, but also I love them exactly as they are, and I don't know what that extra would be. A cop-out, but I think like I have my reasons.
No,
because
it's a justified cop-out. I'll allow it.
Because yeah, I can't think at all, and I have been thinking about this for days. I can't think of a single game where I think I want more of it, where I don't have enough of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Andy, what about you?
It'd be Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yeah.
Give me an expansion like where you get to play Sadie Adler as a bounty hunter. Give me just a sequel to Undead Nightmare to like turn that whole world into like an apocalyptic zombie game. Even just fucking add heists to Red Dead Online. I don't care. I just want more reasons to return to that game, which I return to all the time anyway. I just give me more. It's one of those things. It's complete opposite of what Sasha's saying. I just want more of that game and more of those characters.
Yeah,
I couldn't get enough, honestly, of that.
I'm with you on that. That was going to be my choice. I did think of something like a Crash Bandicoot, like easy run, where like you could actually do some of the more difficult levels and there aren't any jumps or anything for you to get
Red
wrong.
Dead Redemption 2.
Because that would be real. I'd like to see what some of the levels look like when I'm not like, fuck's sake. But yeah, I think Red Dead Redemption 2, maybe spend some more time with Sadie, for example, or Charles, or any of the characters really. I would happily play that game forever. And Red Dead Online, definitely. I'm really hoping they put enough effort into it that it gets to the status that GTA Online has got, because there are so many things that you could do with Red Dead Online. It'd be really nice for our characters, the Top Hat Gang, to ride again and have things to do in that. So yeah, that would be mine too.
I think I fall. I'm going to go back to the Goldilocks metaphor here. I'm kind of in the middle between Sasha and Andy. I'm the porridge that has the right amount of bear hair in it.
Bear hair.
Bear hair.
Yeah. Anyway,
Why is the fur in there in the first place? What's
Yeah.
going on? What story did you read?
What?
You've clearly not eaten food where animals have been around.
Yeah, but there's no point. There's no point in that story where like she's mentioning hair.
Unless
that's in the DLC version of it.
nice.
If there was any, they must have taken it out before they started eating.
What I'm getting at is.
Please bring it back.
Oh, give me that fishing rod. Right, here we go. So, I would love to see Undead Nightmare 2 for Red Dead. Personally, I would like to see Sadie be the main character of the next Red Deads, because that would be amazing. I would love a full story
Also,
with her.
yes.
But also, one of my main issues with DLCs is, like, if it's good enough story to just put it in the main game. And if it's not, then or a sequel, just these kind of bridging stories that are just there to add an extra price tag on. And I have played a lot of DLCs that I do like, but there is that kind of cynical side of me that thinks that they are there just to rinse another 20 quid out of you or something. So I'm more than happy if people just want to save stuff for a sequel, put it in the original game. There's not really too many games apart from Undead Nightmare 2, which would be awesome, that I'm happy with how they are. And much like Sasha, I'm okay with it.
Very diplomatic.
But about that bear fur.
No, I don't want to read your version of fairy tales. Any final thoughts?
I think just like DLC it shouldn't just be more of the same. It should justify existing. It shouldn't be something that you could have just had in the original game. It should feel like a new experience. Like it should feel like something that you could only get as DLC, like Undead Nightmare, something like that. But you couldn't. There's no way to incorporate that into the game, and it should definitely be a reasonable price point. Like there should be good value for money Otherwise, just give it us for free, like with like what No Man's Sky has to do. They just give us it for free, like, because we're kind of owed it. DLC, just I like DLC, but it's got to be for a game that I really like now. Otherwise, I usually just buy the bog standard editions of games now instead of the deluxe editions, because I don't care about the season pass thing, because I've been burned way too many times. So most DLC I just avoid unless it's a game I absolutely love. So like the next one I'll be really into is Cyberpunk 2077, probably, if that ever emerges.
We'll keep our fingers crossed. I'm surprised it took that long to mention No Man's Sky, actually, because that's a really good example of DLC like transforming a game's success and reputation.
Yeah, it's a completely different game now. It's gone beyond the game. Like, they got to a point where the game was finally the game they promised, and now they're still going. They're just still building on it, and it's really admirable. Like, I don't know how they make money doing this, but I am very impressed, and it's like fair play to them.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of DLC should be free. There's a lot of it's not worth charging you for if it's something that should have already been paid for in the main game. That's why I've got a problem with like Watch Dogs Legion's season pass. There's a lot of stuff in that which is just stuff that feels like it was pulled out of the main game, and they're selling it back to you over like a couple of months.
Okay, so for games we like, yes, but it has to hit the Goldilocks spot of price, time, and relevance, shall we say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like innovation,
Yeah.
kind of. Give us something a little bit new. Don't change out too much, but give us something give us like a dash of jam on top of the porridge or something.
Perfect. I'm glad we came up with the porridge metaphor. We'll ignore the bear fur or hair or whatever Chip said.
Both,
Oh, I see.
for some reason. I'm never having breakfast with you, that's for sure.
Yeah, just don't accept porridge.
Do you think he
I'm
carries?
not a bear.
You said that so
I like how-
incredulously.
It sounds like you protest too much, I think.
Yeah.
I like how Chip went with "I'm not a bear," and in my head I was about to say, I don't think he's carrying around a bag of bear hair to scatter on porridge.
Wouldn't surprise me. Anyway,
I think my opinion on DLC is to wrap up. Is just in the wrap up is like obviously largely indifferent because I don't have a great load of experience with them aside from if they're already included in a version of the game I've bought. Aside from cynical cash grabs, I think this really is just one of those things where I'm just like, people that like them, great, you do you. It's your money. If you want to spend it on aesthetic stuff, whatever. I find I'm less judging the people that like that sort of content, and I'm more judging the studios that make that sort of content, I would say.
so you'd say you're aggressively fine towards the concept of the DLC?
Sure. Yeah. No, no, not even aggressively.
Just fine.
I'm
Mildly
just fine. It's fine.
Passively fine.
Okay, so that's it for our episode this month. As is tradition, I have a recommendation for you all for something games related. And it's not DLC related, but Andy started doing a video game music Monday hashtag, so I thought I'd tie in with that. And I wanted to sing the praises of Bear McCreary's God of War score, which is my favourite video game score of all time. I love it. And it's a really good motivator when you need work. And then there's lovely, calm, lilting bits. So yes, God of War soundtrack, give it a listen. Bear McCreary is awesome.
Yep, it's on Spotify, so you've got no excuse to not listen to it.
It is on Spotify. I listen to it a lot. So let's do social media for everyone. You can find the podcast on Twitter at 1UPPOdd with just the one D for the caveat in case anyone thinks odd is spelt with two Ds.
Idiots.
Please give us a rate, a like, a review, a subscribe, all of the things on your podcast platforms of choice. Sasha, where can people find you?
You can find me at Bash at Demonhead on Twitch and Twitter and Instagram, I suppose.
You suppose.
Yes.
Chip.
You can find me on Twitch, where it's twitch.tv/Chip Thompson Stubs.
Are you sure?
I almost forgot that. Yeah, I think so.
How many Twitch accounts do you have?
You'll find someone there at least. And I am on Twitter with all my porridge recipes at the Chip Thompson.
And Andy.
I'm on Twitter at truly_defective.
Still just that one.
And I do most of the tweets on the One Up Pod.
Yeah, you're a tweet machine on there at the moment. It's great.
Yeah, so if you're being abused by somebody, it's probably me.
Affectionately abused.
Sometimes.
Yeah. And I am Becky Grace Lee on Twitter and Instagram. And that's it for this month. Join us next month for Horizon Zero Dawn, which I'm very excited about. And in the meantime, remember, get a life, play video games.